So the first thing I saw when I saw the first trailer for Extinction way back when, I really noticed that the color popped from it, and I really thought that was a interesting thing because it's easy for this kind of thing where like a fantasy setting, like you got your mortar out on the show floor, it could be a little bit drab.
Right. So a really warm color palette and things like that.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. So the world was actually might be interesting, but the world was actually took inspiration from the country of Yemen. So if you go and you look up the country of Yemen, you'll actually see these big square buildings that are all kind of nestled together in the mountain ranges, the big mountains around, and then these bursts of color where there are these bright green trees kind of dotting the landscape. And so that was what we were trying to emulate when we created those environments.
Okay, yeah, that's really cool. That you could definitely tell because like you don't see a lot of like blue and pinks with the ogres there. So looking at the gameplay demo. It looks like it's got a very like unique kind of setup where you're kind of alone out there with just your standard set of abilities against these objectives coming in, like Shadow Colossus style big guys, and then your little guys coming in too.
Yeah, they're really big. So the ogres are 150 feet tall. And of course their minions are more normal sized,
right.
But these guys are gigantic and they're very difficult to deal with in large part because of their size, right? Gaining verticality, managing to actually get up high enough to deal with them is one of the major challenges that's in the game at all.
Right.
And of course one of the things that's really kind of different, you mentioned it felt a little unique when you were looking at it. In a lot of games when you fight against these really large monsters, you're really not fighting against them, right? You're going through something that's more of an abstraction. So for example, maybe they have an HP bar and you're hacking at their toe and then eventually their HP reaches 0 and then they fall over dead.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Or maybe you're doing a quick time event and so there's a bunch of pre-rendered, cinematic actions that happen and you just need to kind of press a button at the right moment in order to keep them going. We really wanted to prove that real dynamic combat could work at those scales, that you could do this really big combat against these huge foes and still have it be the kind of dynamic skill-based combat that you see in a lot of other action games, but just on smaller scales. And so that's something that we really tried to drive out there and something that I think hopefully came across for everyone in the trailer and that also you got to see live when we were doing it in the gameplay demo.
Yeah, I definitely see it on the demo, like him snapping off like belt buckles for his armor and
destroying the ogre's armor, dismembering them. When you're fighting against them, when you dodge, it's because you actually got out of the way, right?
Yeah.
Not because you rolled a die and the word dodge appeared and then you were magically saved, right? So it really is real-time skill-based combat where you're actively trying to dodge the ogres, dodge their minions, and when you're making progress against them in the battle, you're making progress because you're actually destroying parts of them, right? You're destroying their weapons, you're destroying their armor, and then eventually you're hacking off their limbs. And that's how you kind of know that you're making progress and getting closer to the point where you'll actually be able to take this guy down.
Very cool. And so I heard in the demo also there's like a Q-type figure, a female, and she has I didn't remember the name, I'm sorry. But
Xandra.
Xandra. Yeah, my middle name's Xander, so that works.
That works well.
So she has like portals and other, could you see what kind of gadgets she has?
So Xandra is one of a number of characters that are part of the supporting cast that kind of help Avil. Even though he's the last of the Sentinels, he's not entirely alone himself. So there are other characters who are non-combatants that help him throughout the course of the story. Xandra is sort of his partner in crime, and she develops a lot of tools and devices and things that he uses to fight back against the ogres, including the portals that he uses to get people to safety, and a lot of the tools and weapons that he uses to move around and to fight against them.
Right. So we can expect to see something like more weapons and more gadgets as, more reveals go on.
Yeah, so Avil is upgradable. There's a skill tree that you can progress and level up that changes his abilities and how effective they are, things like that. And so as you progress through the campaign, you earn skill points that can be invested in upgrading all of that stuff. And by the end of it, you'll have chosen one particular path to customize him. Might very well be very different from how someone else chose to customize him.
Okay. And I heard there was a single-player campaign, and then you could kind of after that campaign, however long that would be, You can use like customized battles.
Oh yeah. So we actually have a number of interesting gameplay modes that are coming. We'll be telling more about this in the future, but for right now I can let you know there's a deep story campaign. There's a bunch of side quests that unlock as you go through the story campaign. There's an Extinction mode, which is basically endless horde mode, where ogres just keep coming and you have to defend the city for as long as possible.
Okay.
There is daily challenge mode, so every day a brand new mission for you to play. And then there's also going to be custom battle mode, and it's the ability to spin up a quick custom battle that you could then share with your friends and see who can do best on. So we'll be sharing more information about those features in the future, but there's a lot of stuff to keep people happy.
Cool. So it's each level is like you're loaded into a smaller level arena for that, or how big do they really get?
So the levels themselves are actually enormous. I mean, probably some of them are probably more than a mile by a mile or something like that.
All right.
They're very big. Everything inside of them is completely fully destructible. But the game is mission-based, so it's not an open world. So
Right.
you load into one of these giant sandboxes, basically, and then you fight through the mission, based on what the mission objectives are. You might need to save particular people, protect a building, kill a certain number of ogres, gather a particular resource, that kind of thing. And of course, there's a bunch of competing objectives going on at once. Like, you want to save as many people as possible, but you also need to protect this other thing, or you need to, manage to keep them away from this particular area, or lure them into this particular area, things like that. And so, depending on which mission you're playing, you'll have to balance all of these different conflicting objectives and try to complete as many of them as you can as you're going through.
Okay. And so we can expect it early 2018?
Yep. It's coming early 2018, and for people who want to know more, they can go to extinction.com or follow us on @ExtinctionMG on Twitter.
All right. Sounds really good. Can't wait to play more.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. Have a good one.